These are the worst winter sports deaths ever. Ski tree crash. On a cold January morning in Innsbruck, Austria, the silence of the mountains broke with a single thud. The sound of a skier hitting a tree at nearly 100 kilometers per hour. That skier was 19-year-old Ross Milne, an Australian competing in his first Winter Olympics. Hours earlier, he'd been standing at the top of Patrickhofen Mountain, waiting for his turn down the course that would end his life. Conditions in Innsbruck were rough. Warm weather left the slopes icy and thin. This condition forced people to pack snow and expose rocks and trees. Even before the race, local papers were already calling the course dangerously fast and poorly secured. Still, more than 100 skiers were sent down at once for the first training run. Milne started his descent at roughly 11:30 a.m., traveling close to 100 kilometers per hour. He entered a steep section crowded with racers who had stopped in the middle of the track. A perfect place to hang out, oncoming traffic at highway speeds. What could go wrong? As he entered the steep section, there was a cluster of racers standing in the middle of the course. He tried to shift his weight, his ski edge bit into the hard surface, then skipped. That single jerk and a burst of snow launched him to the air. Witnesses later said it looked like his body folded in mid-air before it hit the tree that stood off the course by only a few meters. Then a single thud that cuts through the wind. His helmet cracked on impact, and the trunk had a dark streak where his body struck it. Rescuers reached him within minutes. They found him twisted with blood seeping through the snow. The medics tried to revive him, but there was no pulse and no response. They airlifted him down to Innsbruck, but there was nothing to save. The crash had done its work the moment he hit the tree. The accident prompted temporary suspension of training and an inquiry into course safety. Officials initially claimed Milne had misjudged his ability because blaming the dead guy is always cheaper than fixing a course. But Australian teammates stated that overcrowding and lack of supervision caused the crash. The loss deeply affected and inspired his younger brother Malcolm Milne, who later became the first non-European to win a World Cup downhill race. Luge crash. 21-year-old Nadar Kumaritashvili was a Georgian luger competing in his first Olympics at Vancouver 2010. He had trained since childhood under his uncle, one of the founders of the Georgian Luge program. His international experience was limited, but his performance during the 2009 to 2010 World Cup season earned him a place on Georgia's Olympic team. The men's luge took place at Whistler Sliding Center, the world's fastest new track. Test runs had already hit 95 miles per hour. It was basically an ice death trap, signed off by people who never planned to ride it. Despite safety complaints, the federation approved it, and to make it worse, because of Canada's own the podium policy, foreign athletes got fewer practice runs, and Kumaritashvili had less than 10 before race day. On February 12, 2010, hours before the opening ceremony, he took his final training run. He launched from the start, body flat on the sled, steering with small movements of his shoulders and calves. The sled rattled through each turn, picking up speed with every curve. By the time he entered the lower section, he was moving at 144 kilometers per hour. But exiting curve 15, his sled struck a small joint at the bottom of the wall. The hit sent the sled upward, lifting it off the track to airborne. In a split second, he hit a steel support pole head first. The impact made him lose consciousness. Medics reached him within seconds, performed resuscitation, and airlifted him to a nearby hospital, where he was pronounced dead shortly after arrival. Following the accident, the final section of the track was modified. The barriers were raised, and the men's starting position was lowered to reduce speed. In classic fashion, they fixed the problem only after someone died, proving it existed. Safety net crash. On January 18, 1991, in Wengen, Switzerland, the Lauberhorn downhill was just days away, and every skier wanted to prove they belonged on that mountain. Among them was 20-year-old Gernot Reinstadler, Austria's next big thing. Coaches called him the downhiller of the future. Unfortunately, the future had other plans. That afternoon, Reinstadler launched into his training run on the icy slope. The course was dangerous, with steep drops, narrow turns, and the infamous Ziel S section near the finish line. As he approached the final S curve, he shifted his weight slightly forward. It was a small mistake, almost invisible to the eye. But at 50 miles per hour, there is no margin for error. He launched too far, landed wrong, and shot off course into the safety net. It was designed to save him, but ended up doing the opposite. The tip of his ski threaded through it and stopped instantly. The problem is, his body kept going. The impact tore open his pelvis and several major blood vessels. He left a 30-foot trail of blood in the snow as he slid to the finish area. Spectators at the bottom of the slope fell silent. Many did not understand what they had just seen until the medical team rushed in. They airlifted him to Interlaken Hospital, where doctors worked for 6 hours, transfusing blood and trying to keep him alive. They couldn't. Just after midnight, Gernot Reinstadler was gone. The next day, the entire race was cancelled. Safety nets across the circuit were redesigned, this time with holes small enough to keep skis out of them. It only took one fatal test run to figure that out. A single hole in the net, 1 second too long in the air. That was all it took. Kandahar crash. It was January 29th, 1994. A cold, bright morning in Garmisch-Partenkirchen, Germany. Ulrike Maier stood at the start gate of the Kandahar course, calm and ready. At 26, she was already a national icon in Austria, a world champion, a devoted mother, and the only woman on the circuit who balanced ski racing and raising a child. Her 4-year-old daughter, Melanie, was waiting near the finish line. Maier pushed off cleanly. Her form was flawless through the upper sections, carving perfect lines through ice and snow. 2 minutes later, the finish line was in sight, just 200 yards to go. The slope flattened out into what seemed like a harmless stretch, a wide, shallow curve before the finish line, and that's where it all went wrong. Her right ski sank too deep in a soft patch of snow and caught the edge. She lost balance immediately, her body twisted, and she flipped onto her back while still moving over 65 miles per hour. Within a second, she hit the edge of the course and crashed straight into a wooden timing post. The hit ripped off her helmet and broke her neck on impact. Medics reached her in seconds and airlifted her to Murnau Hospital, but the injuries were beyond anything surgery could fix. She was pronounced dead shortly after arrival. Austria went into mourning. The next race was cancelled. Her fiancé filed a lawsuit accusing officials of ignoring safety warnings. Years later, the federation paid damages, and new safety rules were introduced: stronger nets, better padding, and restricted course speeds. Her daughter waited, still holding the tiny Austrian flag she had waved moments earlier. Snowcat incident. It was the morning of February 22nd, 1992, the last day of speed skiing at the Albertville Winter Olympics. Nicolas Bachete was standing up at the start line. He was a 27-year-old carpenter, a husband, a father of 2, and a man who regularly hit speeds that would get you arrested on a highway. That morning, though, it wasn't about competition. Just a casual warm-up with friends. They'd skied the same line a few times already. He left his aerodynamic helmet and razor-thin skis behind, choosing a normal pair of slalom ones instead. Something slower, something safe. At least that was the idea. Then, at around 9:30 a.m., Bachete started to descend, picked up speed, then launched off one of the rises. He expected another clean landing, but it was not. What he landed on wasn't snow. Just a few meters ahead, there was a snowcat hidden behind the slope, a massive grooming vehicle with a steel plow at the front and rotating tracks built to chew through ice. He came straight onto it, chest first, full speed. The impact folded his body against the machine like a paper doll hitting a wall. The force shattered his ribs, ruptured his heart and lungs, and crushed his chest cavity in an instant. The kind of hit where even a helmet wouldn't have made a difference, only a miracle would. Officials later said the snowcat had flashing lights and a siren. The Swiss team insisted it didn't. Someone was lying, or maybe both were right. Speed skiing never returned to the games because of safety concern. One moment you're catching air with your friends, the next you're the reason the sport gets cancelled. Hockey/incident. It was October 28th, 2023, inside Sheffield's Utilita Arena. 8,000 fans, floodlights, rival chants, and the sound of skates carving through ice. A normal Saturday night for British hockey. The Nottingham Panthers were facing their biggest rivals, the Sheffield Steelers, and 29-year-old Adam Johnson was in the middle of a strong season start. 7 points in 7 games. Then came the moment that changed everything. Midway through the second period, Johnson was carrying the puck through center ice. He brushed against one of his teammates, just a small bump. At the same moment, Steelers defenseman Matt Petgrave came in to block him. Both players tripped in the collision. As Petgrave fell, his leg kicked upward, and the blade of his skate struck Johnson right across the neck. It wasn't a small cut. The blade went deep, straight through the side of his throat and into a major artery. For a few seconds, no one understood what happened. Then the ice turned red. Johnson dropped his stick, pressed both hands to his throat, and tried to skate off. He made it a few strides before collapsing. Paramedics jumped the barrier and rushed in with towels, pressure pads, anything that could slow the blood. It didn't matter. Johnson was taken to Northern General Hospital but never regained consciousness. The official cause is massive blood loss from a severed artery. It doesn't get more final than that. Police investigated for months, even arrested Petgrave on suspicion of manslaughter, before deciding it was a tragic accident. A year later, hockey changed its rules. Net guards became mandatory. The Panthers retired Johnson's jersey. Fans built a shrine outside the arena. It shouldn't take a body on the ice to remind people how thin safety really is. Avalanche incident. It was December 23, 2024, 2 days before Christmas. 26-year-old Swiss snowboarder Sophie Hediger decided to sneak in one last ride before the holidays just for fun. She and a friend went free riding at the Arosa Resort in eastern Switzerland. The slope they picked was marked closed because of avalanche danger, but like most athletes who just come off an Olympic run, Sophie probably saw that as more of a suggestion than a rule. Sophie went first. The snow looked perfect, no tracks, no crowd. Then came the sound every mountaineer dreads, a low crack beneath the surface. The mountain groaned, then crumbled out from under her. The avalanche ripped down the slope, picking up everything in its path. Sophie was caught, tumbled, twisted, slammed into rocks and ice chunks moving faster than a car. Every hit could break a rib, dislocate a shoulder, or knock a helmet clean off. When the slide stopped, the snow hardened like cement. She was buried completely. Her body compacted under several tons of snow. Her lungs had no room to expand. Breathing became impossible after 30 seconds. After 2 minutes, the body switches from panic to silence. After 5, the brain shuts down. Her friend survived and called for help. Rescue teams arrived, scanning with probes and avalanche dogs. It took them 2 hours to reach her. By then, she was frozen, unresponsive, and blue around the lips. They still tried CPR. It did not help. Sophie Hediger was pronounced dead. No matter how good you are, the mountain doesn't care.